Another tactical review on the assassination attempt against former President Donald Trump. And we have new information about a timeline. So I'm going to specifically go through the timeline and what would be the normal police or tactical response during what we now know. So a real quick tidbit before we jump into this timeline here, because the shots came out right around 6:11. So there's about a 90-second gap where there were obvious visual confirmations of the suspect with the gun getting on target on Donald Trump. But before that's very important. So, and unrelated to the immediacy of what we have on the information of the urgent immediate threat is that Thomas Crook's parents actually called police, reported him as missing, and said they were concerned about him. Now, we do not have the actual content of that phone call, but if it came into a 911 center or any type of police or dispatch line, it should be recorded, and I imagine in the future it will be released. If there's any evidentiary value to that, they are not going to release the evidentiary value to that as an ongoing investigation is in place. The other thing about ongoing investigations, as we find out more and more about anybody he might be affiliated with, anybody that might have aided him in any capacity, they are not going to release those details. It would jeopardize the investigation. And I think the American people, unfortunately, need to be patient while they respect that the evidence, the train that is going to be connected leading to any other possible motives or any other possible players in this has to be tightly concealed while the investigation is ongoing, and then all revealed ultimately in the end, and everyone will be able to line up the dominoes and see how everything eventually fell. So speaking of how everything fell out, at 5:51, the local police got notified that, hey, there was a suspicious person with a rangefinder. So I mentioned earlier how that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up if you are in the tactical world at all. So that suspicious person was then sought after. The Secret Service relays this information to the snipers and the ground agents. So as you've seen in prior videos, as you saw or are going to see on the TV show Pivotal Change, as you've seen in Purple Politics, there's been a lot of information. I made a lot of comments in these areas. Go to Ryan Forge's Leaders for the other videos. But this information on how the comms work, they do not have every single person on the same radio station for very good, obvious reasons. So that gets relayed in a timely manner within a minute, right? Hey, suspicious person, we saw something. Maybe there's some substantiation. Let's get the Secret Service to know. So now the snipers were at least made aware. Trump gets on stage. So guys, you have to resolve in your own mind. If there's just a person, a weird person with a rangefinder, do we not allow the president or former president to take the stage? That's a tough question. You got thousands and thousands of people waiting, got a big event plan. We don't have a person with a weapon. We don't have an active incident or chaos ensuring. So Secret Service made the call, right, wrong, or indifferent. Tactically, they made the call to put him on stage and put him on the X on the target. And then we have the people specifically alerting the officers after Trump takes the stage. So he's been on stage, he's going through his immigration speech, and then boom, we have word of a gunman. If we're following the same timeline here, 5:51 to 5:52, within 1 minute of receiving that information of a gunman, within 1 minute, Secret Service should have been notified. Secret Service should have taken action. This is where the breakdown happens. The regular police response would have been to run to the scene, substantiate the efforts, radio for backup, radio to the Secret Service. And we have about a 90-second window. So even with more urgency, there is a subject on the roof with a gun. Donald Trump's team should have had this information within 10, 20, 30 seconds tops. There should have been at least 30 seconds to a minute to respond, cover him with bodies, gracefully get him off the stage if you wanted to make it graceful. And like I jokingly said, let's go to commercial, let's go to TV timeout while we have this incident. So that tactical response is alarming. There was a breakdown between 6:09 and 6:11 where Donald Trump, absolutely regular police response should have been to send the information and take him off stage. So hopefully the local police did what they did, just like they did in the beginning, and they radioed that information to Secret Service. I think the breakdown comes, guys, unfortunately, at the Secret Service level. The last thing I want to add is that at 5:51, people should have been looking for and trying to identify the clothing and the person. You know, you give the descriptions of who's a suspicious person. Let's go locate him. And I still don't have the information. The regular police response would have been, let's go attempt to locate this person, just see what the heck they're doing. Because again, it could be a rangefinder. It could be some weirdo with some new camera that's brand new and we've never seen. There's all kinds of potential that are very rational things that a human could think of how this is an alarm or not an alarm, but you got to go figure it out. You got to go put people and resources on it and go figure it out. And then the last thing I want to comment on is it's very interesting to me how people refuse to assign a motive to this. If you look at just a couple of things that what is a person's motive for taking a life? Well, it's hate and it's anger. So there's hate and anger at the person that you're taking out. Sometimes maybe you want fame. You want to live in infamy forever, and you're going on the suicide mission to live in infamy, but there's still a hate and an evil inside of that. So the motive is clearly an evil motive. It's clearly hate. We can look at the suspect's background and realize that he was donating to Act Blue. Act Blue is a fundraising campaign that gives only specifically to Democratic Party campaigns and fundraisers and things like that. It is specific to Democratic. You can go on their website, Act Blue, and there's over 1,500 people that Act Blue, because it's open records, will tell you that they give their money to. Some of those things will shock you. Some of those things are very pointed, angry, evil things, and some of them are just re-elect Biden campaigns or re-elect this governor or re-elect this senator. But there are people online that have called for Donald Trump's execution, have joked about his murder and his assassination. There are people who have called for rhetoric of violence. That's who this guy was donating to. He was donating to Act Blue, who's going to put money in the pocket of the people that effectively convinced this young man to go make this attempt on Donald Trump's life. So that's more of your police background, more of your tactical background, what the response should have been. And the last thing I want to add here is that 2 cell phones have been reported to have been recovered from the suspects. So most teenage kids, most 20-year-old kids probably don't have 2 cell phones. So why did he have 2? One of them is signed into an encrypted communication platform. So all of this information is stuff that they're not going to tell us the details, but they're trying to break into it. I oversaw a forensics digital unit while I was in law enforcement, and there are processes to this. They have to basically isolate these phones into a giant Faraday box and then do the examinations on them, try to break into them, try to hack them. If software companies are involved in the encrypted data, they now have to do court orders, subpoenas, search warrants on phones on those companies, and there's a lot of privacy rights. And then once again, think about if this encrypted company is a foreign entity, right? It is just hosted in another country. Now you have international hoops that you have to jump through to try to force this company to give us the data that will reveal how and why or who he was communicating with leading up to the time of the assassination. So there will be more information, but law enforcement appears to be doing its job just based on the updates that I can get. And there were good responses and bad responses, and at 6:09 to 6:11 p.m., that's your breakdown. That's the window where tactics failed and someone made the wrong call, which ultimately resulted in multiple shots. We're looking at 6 or 7 shots from the shooter, 3 quick shots, and then 3 or 4 follow-up shots as he was taken out. So stay tuned. We're going to keep breaking this down.